It's exciting when you see that 30 people have messaged and whatever, then literally none of these 30 people were even paying attention when they swiped you. You immediately realize this is a person who's hiding behind their profile. We just had a really nice date. Why would you ruin it by asking me to go sleep with you after a first date? He said, I'm sorry, in LA, that has happened to me every single time now.
He told you that outright.
Yes.
Now imagine an app where you could go on there and the date was planned. That was the first point of contact. Someone sent you a date request of going, I want to take you here at this time, this place.
Perfect. I see the way you two are looking at each other.
Wait, no, I could listen to you talk all day.
Like, so obvious that there's so much love between you guys. You know what? And the fact that you guys can work together and love each other, that's even a bigger indication of how much you care for each other.
Yeah, I only Googled how to kill your wife once.
No, I love your app.
The correlation between depression, anxiety, and the overuse of social media.
It's been very interesting. So I'm going to get very politically incorrect. This is now scientific results coming out saying people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s are experiencing depression and anxiety. And a lot of them don't even know why they have the anxiety.
In association with the First Rounds on Me dating app, we are the First Rounds on Me podcast, hosted by Hannah and Joe Feminella. Hannah usually has these really robust, such sweet intros, but I'm hijacking it today. Without further ado, we have Farahnaz Forozan. Did I get that right, Naz?
Perfect.
She is a world-renowned oncologist, and we ran into each other on the elevator at Soho House. Such a full circle moment to how Hannah and I operate and how First Rounds on Me works, just more in-person connection. And when we were talking, you kind of told me why you were at Soho House, and we got into you being an oncologist, and then you asked me what I did, and we were talking about human connection and social media, and you're like, oh, there's all these ties to cancer and health issues, and I was like, oh, this is so fascinating. But Naz, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we get into all of that, I know Hannah and I have a few questions on how does one even become an oncologist? Where did that journey start?
Yeah, where did that motivation or that joy for the field start?
Yeah, so I grew up in Iran, and my mom was an unofficial midwife. We were the only Jewish family living in an Armenian neighborhood, and she was the midwife, the emergency doctor, the 911 of the entire neighborhood. Wow. And I watched her treat people, I watched her deliver people, and it was so inspiring. And that's where my love of medicine came from. And so from Iran, I moved to Sweden to go to medical school, and came here to visit, and my family convinced me to stay. And I'm actually a clinical PhD. I'm not an MD. I went the longer route of becoming a PhD, then getting my state of California license to be able to practice in state of California. So it's been a long, long route. Yeah, so it's been very interesting. And my background has been very, very involved in always working towards benefiting patients, not to sound too cheesy.
That's awesome. That doesn't sound cheesy at all. It sounds so beautiful. Question for you, because I'm always really curious. How long did it take you to complete the PhD?
I actually did it in a very expedited fashion. So unfortunately, in the US, it's such a long route. Had I stayed in Sweden from the beginning to end, meaning entering from high school to end would have taken me 7 years. But in the United States, you have to go through first 4 years, then you have to apply, then you go through, all these extra classes, and you do residency or what's called a postdoc. I did my 4 years. I did everything in 4.5 years, and I had a baby in the middle of all of this.
You didn't tell me about the baby.
Yeah, well, he's not a baby anymore. He's 26 now, but it was it's very unique to finish in such a short amount of time. And then I moved to California, and I decided to do what's called a postdoctoral fellowship with an incredible oncologist at UCLA. So typically it can take you anywhere from 7 to 8 years to do something that I did in 4.5 years. So
I have a feeling, and this could be inaccurate, every person I meet from Iran, did I say Iran right, or is it yes?
Iran, thank you.
We did.
Thanks for saying Iran, not Iran.
She was like, you have to say it this way, they're not going to take you seriously. So thank you for validating that. But you guys are all like doctors and surgeons and scientists. Like,
So
what do you drink in Iran?
What do they give you there? So highly intelligent, and then also at the same time, such family-oriented human beings as well. And so the balance of that is so skillful and so admirable.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in contrary to what is advertised about Iran, and unfortunately, obviously, I left my country because I don't agree with the government, but despite what it says, what media says about Iran, the last, stats I checked, the rate of literacy in Iran is not more than 98%.
Wow.
So I'm sad to say that's not even close to that rate in the United States. So Iran education is incredibly important. You would see people who live in tin cans in really awful areas, and I know because my mom would take me there to hand out food and all of that, and they still send their kids to school. So education is really important. My mom and dad were very, very, very pro-education, and even in a country where it's women are encouraged to get married. My parents really encouraged us. All four, I have 3 other sisters, and all 4 of us are PhDs. So it was something that was really important. But at the same time, family values are so important too. So I learned from, especially my mom, you got to balance it. You never sacrifice family over work, but this is something you need to stand on your own 2 feet and never rely on a husband or, a man to bring you success on,
That's awesome. And from our 10-minute, it was like a 1-minute conversation that turned into a 15-minute conversation. It was so cool to see that the vibe I got was you had such strong traditional values, but also forward-thinking values in the sense that you had such a great work ethic, but we talked about like human connection and man versus women, all that stuff. We'll get into that stuff.
Yeah.
But we have the unique opportunity to get a behind the curtain look to ask you questions about like over the last 20 years, what's been some of the most groundbreaking research that you found in medicine?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be in forefront of a lot of innovation and work for companies purposefully that really work on groundbreaking, not only a diagnostic, prognostic, but also drugs and devices. And the value of that is obviously research is really important, but a lot of research, unfortunately, especially these days that money is very tight and investors are very risk averse, is that I've been in situations and I placed in my situations where I knew even if it's research that is going to become something that's reality and offered to the patients. And whether I was working at a hospital developing diagnostic and prognostic testing right here at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, or working at companies that we helped pharmaceutical companies and biotech bringing therapies to the market and devices to the market, or working at companies that worked on groundbreaking therapies and technologies. I think the most important thing for me and for those of us who've been in the industry for a long time, I've been in the industry for 24 years, is that we need to really focus on catching diseases early on, because I've worked also in the neurology space, and unfortunately, by the time we find out someone has MS, it's too late. The axons in the brain are already damaged. The nerves are damaged. So we are all pushing, not all, but those of us who are like me, pushing for early diagnosis, early prognosis. So I've been working on both ends of things, working on tools, whether it's AI combined with traditional tools to catch diseases, whether it's cancer or neurological disorders or autoimmune disorders, which we know so little about, or even microbiome disorders, or it's therapies that help us, kind of treat those disorders without creating more damage. And I think traditionally that's been the biggest problem, because we put so many patients on so many drugs that it's horrific and it creates other diseases. And I think we talked about this in the car. My mom being very much a homeopath, traditionally when patients come to me, I do a lot of pro bono work, and I combine traditional medicine with homeopathic medicine to make sure they're getting the traditional treatment if it's the right treatment for them, but also they're doing Tai Chi, they're doing acupuncture, they're following an Ayurvedist, they're taking the right supplements. That's really important to me.
Would you say that that's kind of like the future of medicine in terms of blending both purely medical and then the homeopathic, or is it just kind of something that you prefer?
So I'm going to get very politically incorrect and attack oil companies. So many moons ago, when you look back, every single medical school in the U.S. Taught homeopathy and osteopathy, and it was so interwoven into their traditional teaching. When unfortunately the Rothschilds took over medical schools supported by oil companies, they killed all of those programs. Literally, the last doctor in New York who was healing patients, not treating them just by Tesla coils, was murdered. And so this is something that's really it's something that I advocate for, and I want to make sure everyone knows about. It's very, very sad. A lot of these companies are supported by oil companies. Medical schools are supported, which is why they got rid of the alternative medicine, which is very sad because in this country, I think you're Australian. And when I was in Australia several times, and when you go to Europe, there's, pharmacies, homeopathic pharmacies in every corner. You don't see that in the US. And that's not by accident.
Hannah loves the homeopathic.
Me too.
I'm very much in the same thought process as you. Is like if I have some kind of ailment, or even if it's something as simple as a cold, then I'll always go to the homeopathic first before I start introducing any kind of medication into my body.
Me too. I mean, when I have a cancer patient coming to me and say, this is what's going on, obviously I sit and read the results, medical results and testing and all of that to see if they're either enrolled in the right trial or they don't go through unnecessary treatments. But the second thing I do is I have pharmacies that I send them to. If they can afford to go to an Ayurvedist, I send them to. The biggest problem in this country is functional medicine is becoming even more and more and more inaccessible to patients. Even people like me who have the best insurance, because a lot of practitioners decided to go out of network. So it's really critical to bring that in, and it's very critical to make that accessible to everyone so everyone can do a combination of both treatments and really know that they're alternates, they're things, that there's a woman on LinkedIn. I love the scientist. She's a microbiome expert. She just published, every day she puts stuff on LinkedIn that I am so grateful for, of effect of turmeric as an anti-inflammatory, effect of saffron as an anti-inflammatory. That's how I grew up. And that, even as a practitioner, I still make sure people are aware of this and incorporate it into any kind of treatment that do, or even preventative measure. So I love that you do that. And I know Australia, you guys are such, you're good about these kinds of
well, I think
offerings.
the same with you is that it came from my heritage, it came from my mother, of her teaching me all of these things. And it was so beautiful to see that, like, she wouldn't just, shove a Tylenol in her mouth. She'd be like, okay, go out, sit in the sun, drink some water, have a little bit of lemon and turmeric, like ginger, do all these types of things to aid your body first before we start putting medication into it.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was so funny because I was sitting in a biochemistry class and in graduate school, and I had an aha moment because we were covering very complicated topics. And then he started talking about what's the ingredients, for example, in hot milk. And it's serotonin. And I was like, oh my God, it's all the stuff that my mom would make us drink and eat, when we had a sore throat. There was this special kind of, it's not an apple. I don't know if there's a word for it in English. It looks like an apple. But the seeds, you soak them in water. If you ever have sore throat, you drink a little bit of that water. So your sore throat goes away.
Don't tell us these things, because now I'm going to keep texting and calling you whenever.
No, please do. This is like something I am so obsessed about. And yes, I do practice, So going back to your question of what's new and what's what's in the forefront of innovation, I am very excited about the right AI with the right algorithms that has included all the populations, not just the Caucasian population, when they build their algorithms, being useful in terms of coming in and detecting these diseases. I'm so grateful that with the right AI, the drug discovery, drug development is going to be expedited. So we know what drugs to go after. So again, I'm cautious about AI just because I've worked with companies, I've advised companies that develop AI platforms, and I don't work with them until I know exactly how they build their algorithm and what data they used and if they really included everyone. But I think it's a very exciting time in terms of also, especially in the neurology space, us having finally have had that aha moment, that I've been preaching about for 10 years, of the connection between your microbiome and your gut. The brain gut axis is something I've been talking about for a decade. And now we know there is another kind of Parkinson's that stems from your gut. It's not just the one that stems from your brain. So we now really need to focus on our microbiome dysbiosis, and there are direct relations between your microbiome dysbiosis and cancer. So your gut, your what you eat, what you ingest, what you're exposed to, all the supplements that you take, the right kind of supplements, again, not, the supplement industry is jaded too, but all of that contributes to the increase development of dementia, these neurological disorders, cancers, and all of that. And we really need to get to that. So to me, we are going through a technological revolution. We're going through a therapeutic revolution. We are finally coming and talking about these things without getting scolded by traditional, medicine.
That's music to our ears.
Truly.
I can talk about this all day long, so
no,
stop
it's
me.
so fascinating.
No, I could listen to you talk all day. Like, I feel like I'm
thank you.
learning and
Oh my
absorbing so
gosh,
much
thank
information
you.
right now.
Thank you.
But I do want to pivot to
Yes.
the human love side of
Yes.
science and health and all that. Before we do that, what do you think the homeopathic cure to finding love is?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough question.
What ingredients
honestly.
would you put in there?
It's a good question.
So I have been, in spirit of full transparency, a serial monogamist. I am not someone who likes to date on and on and on. I really believe in the fact that when you're with someone, and hopefully you can stay with that someone. I married my first boyfriend, and unfortunately it didn't work out, but then we got a beautiful son out of it who's now 26. But I've been in search of love for the longest time, and I'm a hopeless romantic. But I think depending upon where you live, especially in LA, it's very challenging to find that true love and to find people who are committed to this love. I think we live in a society where everyone is looking for a better person, even when they are in a relationship with another person. And that's where my challenge is, because I consider myself an Iranian American still, even though I've lived outside Iran for the longest time. I've lived outside Iran more than I lived inside. But culturally, I'm very, very challenged because I have very traditional values. And I live in a country, and I live in a city especially, where those values are sometimes even frowned upon,
Yeah, not even just brushed
especially
off.
This city.
Frowned upon.
Well, we'll come up with a cure. We'll probably have some turmeric in it.
A little splash of hope.
Yeah, we'll make it. We'll call it the Nas homeopathic cure to love.
I love it. We'll give it out for free, though. We won't sell it. You know what I mean? We'll do it in a kind way.
Do you have a question that ties to social media and
I have a whole bunch of questions to
Yeah.
social media and cancer, but would we like to go into... Yeah, let's do that. Why not? All right. So I just find this so fascinating, because I think that the number one thing that we recognize as a society without even understanding the science behind it is the correlation between depression, anxiety, and the overuse of social media, right? Like I think everybody's kind of cognizant to that fact. And so there is this growing concern about the psychological effects of social media, particularly related to anxiety and depression. How do you think that they psychologically impact the physical health of humans?
Oh my gosh, it's horrific, honestly. And I've experienced that. I went through a phase where, as you can imagine, I'm a consultant now. I have my own consulting company. So my brain is working on scientific stuff and cures and this and that, very serious subject matter expert pretty much all day long. And so, thankfully my new dog is keeping me very, very busy. But I found, especially when you live by yourself, you don't have that other person to talk to. You unfortunately rely on TV programs and your phone to get that companionship. I'm trying very hard to get away from that, and not rely so much on the companionship of my television or phone. But it's really difficult. We live in a country where you don't talk to your neighbor. You don't go see your family. My family lives 10 minutes away, and I see them probably every other week, if not every 2 weeks. So I found myself just before going to bed justifying that when I'm in bed and I'm doing my stretches, it's okay to scroll. Then I realized a couple of weeks ago, I was scrolling for 1 hour, even without noticing. And what it was doing to me was it was completely disrupting my sleep. I kept thinking, why am I waking up at 3? Or if I'm sleeping through the night, why am I waking up all anxious and agitated? And I kept thinking about it. And as a scientist, you eliminate variables. And I realized it was my 1 hour scrolling. That's just scrolling on Instagram, looking at pictures, and I look at docile things. So it's not like because I looked at something very violent, which was something that everyone I knew experienced, especially after October 7, because you know how these algorithms work. You look at something and it keeps throwing disturbing things at you. I wasn't even doing that. Just the scrolling, the rapid eye movements probably, or my brain being stimulated every 20 seconds or 10 seconds or 2 seconds. Looking at different pictures was disrupting, my sleep, my mental state the next day. And it, even as a scientist, I hadn't realized that. So now what I do is I don't do it anymore. I actually started listening to this meditation thing that my acupuncturist gave me. And I have to tell you, I feel so much more at peace the next day. I'm not waking up at 3 a.m. So I think I really feel like so much of our youth's, if I can say youth's, stress and anxiety is coming from this constant stimulation of being on their phone and watching horrific things on social media and scrolling. They're finding out, our kids are suffering from depression and anxiety, not just from being bullied on Instagram and social media, but the scrolling is affecting everyone. One of the things that disturbs me is, yes, as a parent, you go to a restaurant, you want your kid to be occupied so you can eat, you can have I never, ever, even at that time, that 26 years ago where everyone was still doing it, they had their kids in front of iPad. I never did that. I gave coloring stuff to my son, and he was only allowed to watch 1 hour of TV the whole day. And that TV, we controlled it. It was PBS programs or things that were fun but educational, or cartoons that I knew that they were okay. I'm looking at so many people putting their 1-year-olds in front of
throwing
iPad.
them in front of it. Yeah.
But what does it actually do to your body? Like, do we see any long-term effects?
Absolutely.
Like what's actually happening scientifically?
Absolutely. There's so much. This is why now you hear on the news so many schools. Actually, my niece just told me they're taking their kids' phones away from them. I know as a parent that's scary because what if there is an emergency? But this is now scientific results coming out saying not just, our 20s, people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s are experiencing depression and anxiety. And a lot of them don't even know why they have the anxiety, right? But they are now going back all the way to school age kids, to pediatricians are begging parents, don't put your kid in front of an iPad. A 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old doesn't need it. This kind of stimulation is really activating. Neurologists are finding out it's activating the wrong brain waves. That is actually now, I haven't seen complete proof about this, but they are now even saying the dementia that we are experiencing at such a young age even is coming. It's stemming from overstimulation and oversensory stimulation coming from us using social media and being on our phones constantly.
We see that in the dating app world, which is kind of why, well, it is why we're doing what we're doing. This overstimulation and this endless swiping.
Paradox of choice. And
people don't even know what they're doing anymore.
No.
They're just mindlessly, they think they're trying to connect with somebody, but they don't connect with anybody. And then they always ask, well, I can't find anybody to go on a date with. And it's like, well, you're using these tools in the wrong way. Do you see that in dating as well, where
Yes. So the way I see it is that the ADD we experience as a culture completely because of our social media use, our use of our phone. When many moons ago, where we didn't have cell phones, you guys weren't born, at
we
that
were the
time.
last
we were the last generation, yeah.
So you left your house and you would come home to check your voice messages.
Yeah.
But your attention was with what you were doing, whether you were on a date, you were with family, or you were at work. Your attention was with what you were doing, okay? Now, and then you would come home and check your voice messages, or it got to a point where you could check your voice messages remotely, But it wasn't that constant attachment to your phone. I know about all of this. I'm a spiritual person practicing Buddhism and Hinduism. And if my phone is away from me, obviously my phone is also my business line, but if my phone is away from me, I freak out. And we didn't have that. I got my first cell phone, in my 20s, right? And I wasn't disattached to it because the phone didn't do everything that it does today. The phone wasn't, and unfortunately, the work culture has changed. So not only our social culture has changed, our love culture has changed, our relationship culture has changed, our work culture has changed. And what I mean by that is that most, unfortunately, I don't care what kind of industry you're in, most people now feel it's okay to send text after hours, to send emails after hours.
It's almost like people are on call.
You're not a team player if you're not checking your email at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And a huge part of it is that before we had the excuse to say I was away from my computer, but now you can't. It's a lie to say I'm away from my phone, because especially now the culture of, I used to work for companies and they would give you a work phone and you had your personal phone. And I joined a company in 2018 and they said, no, our expectation is you use your own phone. And at that time, my son was a Marine. And I said, no way. I am his emergency phone and he's deployed. You're going to give me a business phone. And I work for one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies. And I have to tell you, they all use their personal phone. So now you cannot say I was away. So if you don't answer your email, your text, work text, so all of a sudden, our personal space, or a space that we allocated to one task, which is how humans are supposed to, in general, function, so that your brain is not completely overstimulated and doing 50 things at once. Now our personal space is invaded by our phones, because the phone is doing the blessing that it's doing multiple things. It is also a curse, in my opinion. And so we have no personal space. We have our work and life has has completely mangled. And then, I think that's also affecting our relationships because people, I was in a relationship where I had to constantly nag at this individual and say, this is our date time. Put your phone down, or we're not going to do a date night. And I know you two are smiling, probably because this is something you guys talk about.
Yes.
But when I was married many, many moons ago, we, yes, we made an effort to spend time with each other. But I wonder, would I have had to tell my ex-husband, who was the love of my life at the time, we were, very much in love. We were together for 14 and a half years. Would I have, if we had stayed together, would I have to nag at him and say, put your phone down, like we are on a date? Because times were different at that time.
Yeah, we deal with that now. Actually, a lot, because we just watched a video where it was kind of explaining, if you mold your life with somebody that you love so much, they kind of become a family member instead of someone that you're dating or married to, because you work with them, you just are casually with them all the time, and it takes away the part of that reason of attraction and lust and
romance.
Yeah, romance.
Absolutely.
So it's just like the world's gotten so convoluted now, where you're on your phone, your attention.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really struggling with the fact that we walk around with this mini computer in our hands.
Yes.
And as you said, there is this like anxious attachment that we have to technology in general. It's how we operate. Is that there's not enough defined boundaries within people's lives, and not actively defining those boundaries of, this is, like Joe and I talk about this all the time, like, this is when we're husband and wife, this is when we're co-founders, this is when we're business partners, this is when we work together on this. And it is increasingly difficult, especially considering the fact that he's runs an entire company, to be able to figure out those moments. But I think it is the first step of anything, is being hyper aware of the fact that that perhaps that's what's causing issues, or could potentially cause issues in the future. So,
yes. And the thing is this, all this attention that you are now putting into setting these boundaries, probably even 15 years ago would have gone into, what are we doing tonight? What's our next adventure, right? So what I am trying to allude to is that not only we have to pay attention to setting these boundaries, even those conversations are adding tension to relationships. And because it's tension, no one wants to be told, don't do this, don't do that. No one, especially as a woman, living in a world where I still believe that I love to have still the masculine roles and feminine roles in my relationship. Well, and my sisters always say this, they say, you have had to be both a mom and a dad to your son. You've had to climb the industry's ladders. So you've had to be a man. You have had to wear the pants. So it's very difficult for someone to be in a relationship with you, especially because you are attracted to very masculine men. A masculine man doesn't want to be with a masculine woman.
I deal with that.
But you do. But you honestly do. And I was about to say, that's so interesting, because I feel like a lot of powerful women, and I shall call myself a powerful woman because I know that I am, but like when I grew up kind of by myself, I was out in the world like doing all of these things, and I had to take care of myself, and I was always by proxy with men who weren't very masculine, or who were masculine who were threatened by my masculine energy. Yep. And when I first met Joe, he was like, just relax. Like, just take a step back and realize that you can be safe and comfortable, and step back into that feminine a little bit more. And it took me a long time. It's still something that I'm working on, but I see that common thread with a lot of my friends who are very powerful women as well, because it's hard.
It is so hard to be a powerful woman, and the reasons are exactly what you said. But, part of the reason I'm not dating right now, as much as I would love to have love in my life, I am always the happiest when I'm in the right relationship. I am that hopeless romantic that, loves to cuddle and sleep next to a man and wake up with a man wrapped around, with their arms wrapped around me. But I've found it more and more and more challenging to find men in LA, especially, who are comfortable with a powerful man, who don't feel challenged. And imagine this. So we already have that challenge. Now, when even we are in a relationship, now we have to scold the man into say, hey, get off your phone. Hey, spend time with me and whatever. And because then now we are powerful women who are also naggers, and we are telling our man who we wanted to be masculine what to do.
It's a bit of an oxymoron.
That's
in a way, isn't
the combination, best combination formula for failure and not being able to be in relationships. I have lost many bets with my friends. Unfortunately, I should not bet anymore. And their prize is always that they force me to join online dating.
And have you?
I have done it multiple times, but I've got off in the last 5 years. I've probably lasted the longest 5 days, because it always is this: you join, you talk to yourself, you as a spiritual person, you put all the right vibes out there, right? But then you join, and it's exciting when you see that 30 people have messaged and whatever, and then literally by the next day, if I last that long, you see none of these 30 people were even paying attention when they swiped you. They don't know who the hell you are that you messaged them back. Or if they message you, you immediately realize this is a person who's hiding behind their profile, has no interest in meeting you in person, and they just want to continue this conversation, either probably because they have a girlfriend or a wife and they're online doing this. And I did a social experiment during COVID.
We love social experiments.
Me too.
So I did this social experiment, even though I was working 80, 90 hours a week. I said to my friends, I'm going to join dating apps. And they said, why on earth now? And I said, because the cheaters are going to be with their wives and girlfriends.
So smart.
So they can't cheat. Guess what? I still found cheaters, because they would come and say, could we have a Zoom call tomorrow night at 11 o'clock p.m.?
It's like a virtual version of a booty call.
Could we? And I was like, and I right away realized that that's what was going on. Probably the wife was at a class or the girlfriend was asleep. And so my social experiment during COVID failed, because I still found cheaters. I still found people who were, who had partners or girlfriends or whatever. And they were clearly trying to, to be in that space. And I'm not saying that's what's going on with everyone, but unfortunately, I find that, especially as someone who relies very heavily on my intuition, it's just walking into this phase of non-reality where people are utilizing it to hide behind reality. They have no serious intention of really meeting someone. I've met people who have met online and got married.
What's your how-to or your hack on how to go on a real date with somebody from an app?
So it's so interesting, because the last time I joined, someone told me Hinge is great.
That's what we got married off of.
So I joined Hinge, and I was hopeful, because right off the bat, the 3 or 4 people that I was talking to asked for my phone number. To my absolute heartbreak, guys, I have to admit it, I sat and cried for 2 hours, honestly, if not more. I found out it was a scam. They were asking for your phone number to hack. And how I found out, the first person immediately after a hi, hello, asked for my phone number. I said, oh, this is refreshing. Then the second person immediately asked for my phone number, but asked the same question, same exact question. When the third and fourth and fifth person asked me the same exact question at that same exact timing, I messaged my friend and I said, what is this about? She said, disconnect. There is a hack going on Hinge that they're using the phone number to hack into, to get your voice, to use your voice as AI to hack into accounts and misrepresent.
It would have been nice if that hacker was hacking to find love instead of hacking to take your voice.
It was so heartbreaking, honestly, because even though I've seen negative things, I'm such a hopeless romantic. For a minute, I really thought these are people who are seriously looking for someone. So now I'm being told, I asked actually someone, I was at Penmar Friday night and we were talking about exactly this. And this woman said to me, oh my God, I don't give my real phone number. I have a Google phone number. So you need to do that.
Smart. Wait, so going back to, so you were just saying, so like when you first went on the dating apps and you kind of deleted them after 5 days, it was very disheartening to see all of these matches and it not leading anywhere, right? Huh. Or then when you did match with people, then you ended up, they were either cheaters or they were scammers and hackers. So how important do you think it is to prioritize face-to-face interactions especially within the first kind of stages of dating, like the first date?
100%. So my policy, and I even put it on the profile, I am not your one-night soulmate, because I don't believe in sex at the first. And unfortunately, a lot of women have done that. So men are expecting it. And I know that because my guy friends tell me that. You know, where is this? We went on a really nice date. Are you going to go to my place or we're going to your place? Excuse me. We just had a first date. Coming from is because I asked the guy, actually, I went on a date last year and I asked the guy because he said that. And I said, we just had a really nice date. Why would you ruin it by asking me to go sleep with you after a first date? He said, I'm sorry. In LA, that has happened to me every single time now. I go on a first date and I sleep with the women.
He told you that outright?
Yes, outright.
I like the honesty.
And I asked my guy friends, I said, is this the norm for you guys? And they said, well, not every time, but it happens quite a bit. And women, you know, are okay with that. So now it's become a standard for dating for us, which is really heartbreaking. But the thing for me is that I put it on my profile. I'm not your one-night soulmate. I am not looking for a hookup. And I have to tell you, when you put that on your profile, it makes you even more attractive.
Of course.
Because now
it's a challenge.
It's a challenge. And when I start communicating, and I'm not your pen pal. So my policy is if I'm online, if after the first hello and whatever, I always say, I know it might be emasculating to you, but I would like to have a phone conversation after the first few texts to see if we click on the phone. And then after, a couple of phone conversations, I like to go for a walk or for coffee, because my guy friends have told me, don't go on a dinner date, because what if you don't like the person? You want to walk away. You want to create an environment where you both feel comfortable walking away. And so that's my policy. If I ever go back online dating, I want to know I'm not wasting my time with someone, who is just there to hide behind their profile and, waste my time.
100%.
It seems like the bar got so low for men where all they have to do is just plan a date.
Well, that was going to be my last question, actually, because this hour is flown by.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
we don't have any games today. Okay. Next time we will, honestly, if you guys like this episode, you comment below and then we'll have it back on. But in the vein of all of this, I want to know what your first date tip would be for men.
For men,
yes.
So first of all, I personally like a man who, when they ask me out, to make a couple of suggestions and say, I've picked, based on our conversations, because that right away tells me this guy is actually listening and we've actually connected. Based on our conversation, I've picked these 2-3 places. What do you think? Or would you like me to just pick? And I love that taking initiative. Guys, I still love a masculine man to show me that I'm the female in the relationship. And I love that. For me, I love that when a guy especially gives me options. I love that.
Now imagine an app where you could go on there and the date was planned. That was the first point of contact. Someone sent you a date request of going, I want to take you here at this time, this place.
Perfect.
That's what our app does.
It's a great, great, great adventure. Because first of all, that situation is an exciting thing that you meet someone. I always tell people, look, I even tell people that I'm talking on the apps, the worst that can come out of it is a great relationship, a friendship. You know, we could meet and there's no chemistry because every woman, I'm sorry, this is my opinion, knows within the 30 seconds they meet a man if they want to sleep with them.
How? Why?
I just know.
Intuition.
Is it a chemical?
Chemistry.
Smell.
It's chemistry thing. And people ask me this all the time. Are you 100% sure? Is there anyone you've met that you didn't have a chemistry with immediately and then you had chemistry with afterwards? Never.
Wow. Okay. Love this.
Sorry, I know it's 18.
No, that's amazing.
Please.
I have one more question for you
Yes.
before we leave. If a guy can't plan a first date, then he's what?
No, that's not a negative on that person. Absolutely not. There have been a lot of fantastic dates where we talked about it and we decided together. I just think that gives you an extra, I know not to sound like a schoolgirl, that gives you an extra butterfly when the guy says, look, you know, based on our conversations, you know, that you had an amazing experience in, for example, in Prague. What do you think about us going to this restaurant? They serve, you know, Polish food. To me, that just says this guy was really listening. He's someone who takes initiative. But I've had also great dates where the two of us talked about where we would like to go, where we haven't been, you know, and it was still a great date. It's just, you know, kind of like it tells you a little bit more about that person. But it's not a negative annotation associated with it. If he says, let's figure it out together.
But it's cherry on top if they do.
It is. It is just because you learn a little bit more about this person.
Agreed.
Before you even meet them.
I love that.
We're going to have to go out for dinner.
Oh, yes.
I want to hear you talk for hours and hours more.
No, first of all, I always love to surround myself with successful married people because that kind of vibe and energy only brings love into your life.
Who said we were successful?
I see the way you two are looking at each other. And it's so obvious that there's so much love between you guys.
Yeah, she's the best business partner. I mean wife.
You know what? And the
Fucking
fact that
smart
you
ass.
guys can work together and love each other, that's even a bigger indication of how much you care for each other. That is the hardest thing for any couple to work together.
It really is.
Thanks,
And we're in
Alice.
our first year and a half of marriage as well. And they always say that is the most difficult. So it's like all of these things on top of it, but there is nobody else I would rather do life with than you, my dear.
Yeah, I only
wish-
Googled how to kill your wife once.
I wish you.
You're being so
people
sweet.
could
You're being such a
see-
smart.
No, I wish you two people could see the way you guys look at each other. I love your app. The
Thank
way
you, darling.
you just do this. So, anyways,
We appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me
We will definitely
here.
have you on again. Thank you everybody for listening. Check out one of our past episodes.
Subscribe.
Subscribe, please. It helps us out so much. Happy dating. We love you, and we will see you next time.